Good evening, everyone, and welcome back to another Supercoach Insider podcast. My name is Swiz, here to talk Road to Round 1. It's part 5 of my team segment. Thursday night teams are out, and we're 24 hours away from the start of the season. As always, thank you to Splash Vodka for sponsoring this podcast, and all the fans and Supercoach community for supporting us. As always, check us out on all our social media platforms, in particular YouTube, TikTok, and Twitter. Supercoach Insider 100 for the lads, or Swiz 26 for myself. Well, been an absolute massive 24 hours in Supercoach. We've got obviously the first teams have been named for the season, Richmond versus Carlton. We've had the big news about Elliot Yeo, and we've had the official Supercoach launch, as you can see there by the picture. Thank you for the invite for Supercoach and Fox Footy, bringing me along there. Fantastic night with everybody, catching up with all those influencers that I'm sure that you've either seen or listened to. So a couple shout outs to Emily and to JP, former winners. Fantastic achievement that, and naturally, like everyone else, we're trying to win this season, but fantastic people. The Fox Footy team and the Supercoach team in particular, Al Patton and Dan Batten there, the Phantom, Heath Shaw, just fantastic people, and the people that work behind the scenes there, putting on the event that they did. And then the other podcasters that were there, so Dr. Supercoach, in particular Pistol, you're an absolute ripper, mate. Supercoach with DR, another absolute ripper bloke, and that. All the Jock Reynolds boys, really good catching up with them as well. Fantastic night had by all. And it's just great to spend time talking footy, and people would have seen the Emily and JP on the Fox Footy program after that, and then a few of us definitely kicked on a bit late on that. So it was how much Supercoach can you talk? But there was a few beers flowing at the Arbory float there, and I think the early hours, we're still talking Supercoach 6, 7, 8 hours later over a few frothies. So, it was an enjoyable night had by all. And it just shows how good and close the Supercoach community is. But we're here to talk round 1 and my team. So, we'll get into that in a second. But before we do that, we do have the first teams out. Now, Richmond Carlton. The big thing with Supercoach, especially round 1, it is a rolling lockout. So you just have to lock in your Richmond and Carlton players and make sure they're locked in, because you can't change them and move them around. But after that, you can still change your team. So that's why I put part 5 and not final team, because what will happen is teams will come out tomorrow. I'm most likely to be at the London hotel with a few mates before the Richmond Carlton game. And then hopefully the teams will come out then. We'll be naturally making some changes, and then into Friday morning before the Geelong Collingwood game. But throughout the whole weekend we'll definitely no changes, and that's where the already we've had the news of Yo, so there could be more outs as we lead into the weekend. But we'll start off Richmond Carlton first, because that's the teams we know. We can run through it. So we've got Bolter, Floston, Grimes, Broad, Baker, and Rioli. So Baker's got over that injury that he copped in the preseason. So I know that's probably more for draft leagues, but I know a couple of people are looking at him as a defensive forward option in Classic and that. I'm not against the pick. I think there's better picks there, but if people are interested there. You got McIntosh, Prestia, Short. Unfortunately, Short is playing wing midfield, so that's no good for our Supercoach teams. Morris Rioli, Jack Graham, Shea Bolton, Jack Rewalt, Dusty, and Lynch. Then Nank is rucking to Taranto and Hopper. If they weren't locking your team already, just put them in. Taranto and Hopper straight into those sides. We've got Miller, Pickett, Cochin, and Mansell as the interchange bench. And then the sub will come from one of these emergencies. So Jack Ross, Samson Ryan, Juddy Clark, and Thompson Dow. So I would probably think it's either Ross or Thompson Dow. Samson Ryan wouldn't make as much sense to me, but it's interesting that Samson Ryan is on that emergency. So he is in frame for some games, as we've been talking about throughout the season. So those who might not want to start Madden and looking for somebody who might be a bench person early in your ruck as your R3, but who will get games later on, he might be an option. The only problem is because of their fixtures, and Giants playing a lot later than Richmond in a lot of games, he isn't a great loophole option. All right, and for the Blue Baggers, they got Young, Wiedering, and Sard playing in the back line. I know a few people looked at Sard because of his average when Zachy Williams is out. And then halfback is Sam Doherty, McGovern, and Cowan. So Cowan's been named over Sin Cotter, and he's been named on field halfback. So at the moment, I have him as an emergency there. The problem is if he actually scores really well, kind of then what you do, you don't really want a non-playing player, unless that's the loophole that you're going to be going with throughout the season and that. But with the defender options we have, I kind of don't want to waste a spot there. So it'd be one of those things I'll think about if I actually put Cowan on field or I just use him as the cash cow and back up there. But yeah, so he's in and probably should be in everyone's team as a defender. We've got Akers, Cripps, and then Ollie Hollands has been named on the wing. So he's an interesting one because the 162K. And because of some of the midfield options we've had, do we really want that much money just sitting on our bench? You know, I've already got Phillips currently sitting there. So, you know, is that the way we want to go? I don't think it's a bad pick, but there are a few notable absences out of the Blues, in particular Sam Walsh. And when he comes back in, do you think Hollands goes out? And is it a case that maybe if he has a couple of games in, does Sin Cotter then come in? You know, they can move Cowan up the ground, and that I think, either one or two of them play each week. But it might be a bit of a rookie roulette there. We hope Cowan gets a more, longer go at it, but Hollands is the one I'm a bit worried about. But they've obviously got a lot of faith because they've named him straight on that wing. Up forwards, Jack Martin, Harry McKay, and Jack Silvani. And then we got Owies, Charlie Curnow, and Zach Fisher up forward. The ruck, they've gone the one ruck, and it's Tom de Conning. So another interesting one for draft there. I think some people have got themselves in position in some draft leagues where they've picked up both de Conning and Pitternet. So if that's you and you're waited late like I do in my drafts to pick up a ruck, it might be worthwhile stashing one on your bench and then just swapping because it looks like the Blues want to just play the one ruck. And then in that midfield's Kennedy and Hewitt with them. Nicky Newman, Chera, Ed Curnow, and Motlop are the interchange bench. And then their emergencies, Pitternet, so I don't think he'll be the sub. And then it's Honey, O'Brien, and Plowman. So I would probably think either Honey or O'Brien get the nod as the sub there. So there's nothing there that's going to hurt us. Like that, the worry is, I think Sin Cotter gets named there and might already have his, scoring dented. But that's also interesting, the fact that Sin Cotter's not even named on the emergency list. So maybe a bit further back than what we were all hoping. So yeah, that's the notable ins and outs, and I actually went through the whole ins and outs there. So and the whole team, and yeah, it'll be interesting to see what else we find out for the weekend. West Coast have named their first gamers, so we've got Gimby, Chesser, and Noah Long have all been confirmed by the Eagles. So some options there for us. Well, definitely the two West Coast backmen we were looking at. Noah Long's an interesting one. The worry is small forwards, especially in a team that might be down the lower end of the ladder. How is he going to score, and can we really run both Long and Davey? So it is still an option for people, but I think you probably want to have one in your side. Maybe potentially is that loophole option in the midfield. Definitely somewhere where I've had Davey in and out of my side because from my forward line to my midfield to have that. But yeah, Noah Long can definitely be that option if you don't have the same confidence in Davey. So yeah, Davey has been named. For North, Sheasel's been named. The Saints are yet to name. There was some talk today that Philpoo and Karamiti might both get the nod, but Ross Lyon is yet to confirm which Saints players will get the nod. So something that will probably come out tomorrow at some point. Usually the rookies, they like to make a big deal for them for their first game, which rightly so. So we just await that news to come in. For me at the moment, there's been a bit of chopping and changing. That's obviously because of the big news. Elliot Yeo, calf injury, definitely missing round 1. Don't know how long he's going to be out for. So it was a question of, do we go up or do we go down? And I have played with both options today, and I've probably, still not 100% settled on my team because of that. I was really close to coming on today and going, yep, this is what I'm really happy with it, and bar a couple of rookie changes. And I did have an F5 there, which was a more senior person with Yo, in that D3 position, but now with the calf, I was looking for a reason not to really pick him, but it was just more the percentages. But for 50% of people now do need to make that move. So for me, I went up to Sicily. So it's Sicily, Doherty, Ridley, and then Jones, Ruben, Gibney, and Chesser. Chesser's come on field instead of Constable just because now with Yo out. I think that obviously not only opens up his job security, but a bit more scoring potential there with a senior West Coast player not around. So, I was thinking about originally it was going to be Constable there at D6, but I've moved him into that M10 position. Wilmot and Cowan there as the emergency, and we've talked about him. And I think it might be a case if McKenna potentially is named, do I then look about taking either Sicily or Ridley out to put McKenna in? He's the one that I've sort of been toying with. Tom Cole's also come into my thinking, but he's just, the scoring history isn't there compared to some other players, and he is that little bit more expensive than McKenna. He's 17,000 more than him. But for his job security, he has awesome job security in that West Coast backline, and that's just obviously been shored up even more now. So that's where I was kind of thinking, do you pay for less points but job security? But yeah, so I have considered that, but at the moment I'm sort of banking on, let's go the 3 sort of premiums, and I'm been pretty hot on Ridley anyway. But I know a few people, because of the Yo news, has gone up to either a Dawson or Sicily, and that probably now worries me with that 50% change. Where's it going to go? So I'll probably be tracking that a lot as well. So if Sicily and Dawson do get a big spike, then I definitely will want one of them in my side. Where if it's more the fact that everybody then goes more rookies and maybe goes down to Crozier and McKenna and those sort of guys to fill that spot, then I've got a little bit more confidence just running the 2 premium defenders. In the midfield, that has not changed. Laird, Bont, Green, Setterfield. I was talking about him on the official Supercoach podcast last night. I think he's still only in 3%. I just think there's a great role for him, and he does have the history. One of the guys we talked about at a bit of length last night with the other Supercoach creators out there. And I think everybody's sort of looking at that one person. Is it going to be Warple, Horn Francis? Even Lockie Ash was in some people's discussions there. So I think everybody wants that kind of mid-price. They're in that spot. I do know a few people were looking like sort of going up again, and that's what I did play with today. Maybe it's like put Neil in there and back that in, but I still think Setterfield's shown before at Carlton, even a bit at GWS, that with the right role he can still score well, and it's also easy to start higher and go down if need be, if Warple actually smashes out the first couple of weeks. And that continues to be my thinking there. Hopper, Finn Callaghan, I'm a little bit more torn about than what I was. And a little bit of thinking, do I want Phillips actually on field? And then does that become, say, Toby McLean hit? Toby McLean is a big mover and shaker for my team, depending on how that sort of where he's named. And firstly, if he's named, and then where he's named. If he's named in like a half-forward wing role or midfield role and that, then I'll definitely want him in. And it could very easily be Finn Callaghan out, Will Phillips comes on the field, and then Toby McLean goes onto that emergency spot and then becomes a loophole for my forward midfield. And I kind of really liking that anyway, because the Finn Callaghan money does allow me, not only to get down to McLean, but does give me the potential option to get, say, Davey up to Radigalia. Now, I am a bit worried about those Geelong guys, and I know a lot of people are looking, and we'll talk a bit more about Yo in a second with the Bose options and stuff like that. But I am a bit worried about how Geelong, with their sort of squad of 27, 28, how they rotate. But Radigalia does give me a little bit more ruck flexibility, and with the sort of the way it is, I know we're all trying to pick our teams for round 1, but some of these rookies could find themselves out of the side, round 2, round 3, round 4, and then it's sort of like, what do we do then? And I'm trying to, a lot of long-term planning here. And I know that's why, people want to put as many guns in as possible, but at least with sort of the mid-prices and the more expensive rookies, they do have better job security. So that's sort of the thinking there. Even part of the idea that, do I put instead of the Sicily, it's, Will Day or someone like that, and then Callaghan's money goes up a little bit, and whole little ways you can do that. We still haven't heard if Cam McKenzie's been named yet, but he's in there at the moment. And that's an easy swap. That would become like a McLean type if he's not named. Ashcroft should be a lock in every team. Don't know why he's still not 100%. And then the back line. In a perfect world, I would like that forward link, but I think that'll develop also throughout the season. There's also a chance Oscar Baker might pick it up by round 6 too, so I'm not going to force it if I don't have to, but I'm a little bit more comfortable there, and would be probably more comfortable if Davey was at M11, because it does open up some flexibility, but as I said, not going to force it if it doesn't happen. The rucks I've played around with quite a bit. It seemed like a lot of the Supercoach creators and content creators last night were very much on Shrek, big Sean Darcy, so that's something to think of. There was quite a bit of love for Maxi Gawn. We know his history of scoring as well, and a lot of people think he's going to get forward status, and then if he doesn't pick up forward status, it probably means he's dominating on the ruck, so he has floated in and out of my side, especially Wits. I'm probably going a bit more colder on English, just the preseason injuries are worrying me more and more. I can see myself potentially going down the Shrek just for the 40,000. Obviously, he comes with risk, and so I had a long chat to a couple of people. I know Heath Draw and I were talking a long time about Wits last night. Obviously, he's a former teammate, so I'm just going to talk him up anyway. But he's had an awesome preseason, and we saw what he did with no real preseason last year, coming off that ACL. So there's a bit of confidence there, and he does have a couple of easy games to start the season, so he could definitely be a VC option for us. Marshall, the only issue with Marshall right now is Tom Campbell looks like he could play, and then with the Saints more forward worries, does he play more forward? And his scoring is so much different being the number one ruck versus if he has to spend time forward. So that is one to potential watch, because we all just want Marshall to be the number one ruck in there and just smashing it like he did in the preseason. And Madden's still my loophole guy. Just at the moment is VCC, but that's where Radicalea still has some interest for me. The job security not great, but it does open the ability to sort of put Madden forward if need be, and Radicalea in the in the R3 position, and then I can loophole your Greens and Sheasels and Philippus and even Radicalea. A lot of the North Melbourne Saints games play, and even Green at Hawthorn play after the GWS games. I think it might be 6 of the first 8 rounds, so it does open the idea that I can, put the emergency on one, and then Madden comes on field if that one scores well, but I get 2 bites at the cherry at F6 if that's the way I go. Forward line, Dunkley, Rosie, Taranto, and Goulden has not changed. The only big change there is Sheasel's gone from F6 to F5. I'm very big on not having a rookie at F5 and really don't like that as much. I really want Sheasel at F6, and that's probably where the change still could come in my side. And that's where the debate between Sicily and Ridley there will continue to make me probably really think over the next sort of 24 hours, because obviously taking, say, either, especially if it's Sicily, it frees up so much more what I can do with my side. Even if it's, could be as much as Canelio comes in, and then it's like McKenna into that back line. And then like Philippou goes to the bench, and so there's things there. And that's where I've also looked at, is it Finn Callahan out, Phillips goes onto field, and then, Philippou, McLean go into the onto the bench. So there's a big part of me, I don't like putting so much money onto my bench, but if they're dual position players on there, and then it just takes off, I'm really then hoping somebody gets a 1-week injury by playing like that, and then I know I've got some really good cover coming off the bench, and that, where if there isn't injuries and people have got more guns on their team firing, people are going to get ahead of me in points. So like everything, there's risk and reward, and I'm sort of still debating over that, but I definitely think Sheasel's going to be in my side. That's no problems at all, and it's just F5, F6. Philippou, it's a really torn one. I know, like when I was on Centre Bounce the other day, and interviewing Anthony Caramiti, and he said, he's been absolutely smashing the preseason, and he's just one of the hardest trainers already down at that club. But with St Kilda's injuries at the moment, and it was interesting in the room last night, there was a couple of people that tipping the Saints to win the Spoon, which I hadn't actually had them that low. But yeah, if they were not to perform so good, and he's not getting to see as much ball up in the forward or half forward, and just because of his size, he might have to play a little bit more key forward just because of all St Kilda's injuries. How well can he actually score? Like the kid's got so much talent, and he's going to be a great player going forward for us. But yeah, it does have me a little bit worried there. And maybe it's just not even him. And, as I said, he could, if McLean looks like a good role and that again, and we've seen it in the past, it was just that little bit of that preseason game scared us a little bit, but he's potentially the one that just goes in there, and then it's, and I probably feel a little bit more safer with him. But, Green and Davey on the bench there as the cover doesn't sell me with a lot of confidence, where she's ought to have 6, and then if it becomes Phillip or McLean or whatever on the bench, I'm sure I'm a little bit more relaxed with that. So sort of what's going through my head at the moment, and I'm sure a lot of people are sort of thinking the same, and that's where that ruck, even that the R1 decision is interesting, because some people go up to Gorn, that's an extra 20k you're spending. If you're going down the Shrek, you've got an extra 40k in the bank, and that's probably freeing up to allow you to do a lot more things. Even Sicily versus Dawson, there's 20k there. So if you're I've looked through a couple teams and people have Sicily and Gorn, and then the next person I look through and they've got Dawson and Shrek. Well, and then you can see where that 60k's on the field, and that's, say, Davies gone up to then a Phillipou or a Toby McLean or somebody like that on the bench, and I think that could be important. And that's where I was talking about on-field points before. Can, say, Darcy and Dawson match Sicily and Gorn? Well, of course they can. And what would you rather on the bench? Davey, who could find himself out of the side, or a sub or something like that in the next 2-3 weeks, where McLean could potentially be a 60-70 point and even maybe better rookie for us. And that's sort of the debate that I know people are having at the moment. Elliot, let's talk about that. So that's just been huge news with the calf and that. And I did say I didn't have a lot of confidence with him in that practice match, and he's as much as he's had a great preseason, naturally he's been injury prone, so that's probably ruled him out, because who wants to bring a guy back in your side who's injury prone? And I think that's going to be a debate through the season, because he'll probably come back at some point, go ton, and then it'll be really tempting to bring him in. But for now, all we can do is go, okay, what are the options? So as I said, going up before, Sicily, your Doherty's, Dawson's, one of the big ones. Or even if you didn't have like a Ridley type, that's an easy one. Maybe an easier one, because it's 170k instead of like myself there had to find 290 to go to Sicily. Some people are trying to not change their structure too much, so they're looking for people around that price. One is Will Day, which is an interesting one. We all think he should get a little bit more centre bounce time. It's just on the roll, and that's one we've got to sort of see with teams and where he's named, because he is a little bit more expensive than Yo, in the 360s there. So it's a lot to pay for a guy that we're not 100% confident in the role. Is it down to Bose or Hunter Clark, who were some popular options when Supercoach first opened? Again, my issue with Geelong is I think they've got a best 27-28, and how do they rotate that as the season goes on? And it's very much as what Melbourne have been talking about. It's not about one player dominating. We want an even spread. So could Bose, and that's even with Tanner Bruhn, Gralia, find themselves out of the team in 2 or 3 weeks? And maybe it's not even because of a really bad game. It just might be because they've got other guys performing really well or coming back in, and just team balance. So there's job security issues there. Hunter Clark, I think it's more the body, if you're confident with that, and then what roles he's playing. Can he score enough as a 300k guy? A couple other questions I had today was, could I go, say, Lockie Ash, put McKenna and Chesser and go back the rookies in? And then when he or Zeeb will get the dual position status, I'm only playing these rookies for 5-6 weeks. And that's a fine strategy, but obviously, you're banking on rookie roulette in the defence. So for me, that would be, let's say we took Sicily or Ridley out, and then and I might be able to do this just so as a bit of a visual here. So let's just, for argument's sake, I was looking at Sicily, so let's take him out. Let's find McKenna in there. So he's owned by 33%. There's Yo. So 10% of people have already changed Yo out. So there we go. We got McKenna in that side. And if we save my team, all of a sudden, we can see there that we've got the change. And Doherty, Ridley, and for me, it's Lockie Jones. Some people actually have gone down to Jones because they didn't have him already. So that's a 3, but all of a sudden, Gimby, who we're expecting to do quite well, but then, McKenna, and there's questions about him, so let's just say him and Wilmot can swap. Chesser and Constable, but what happens if Gold Coast do get a full lineup, and does Constable, fall out of that, but I still think Constable's a good option, especially early on. Does that make us a bit too thin? And the big thing there, it's like, okay, well, who would I rather on field? McKenna versus, say, Philippa or McLean. And that's where I think a lot of discussion is, and that's where we're saying, well, I don't really want one of these forward rookies on my side, but would I prefer one of them maybe scoring 50s and 60s? Well, it's probably the same as McKenna scoring that. Like, who's got the better job security? Well, probably one of these forwards actually do. Who's the better scorer? Well, maybe McKenna slightly, depending how his fitness is and his role. So it's a real tough one on what people want to do there. Others, Crozier. Again, I think he probably not a bad option, but he scored as well as he did in that practice match because they had the early injuries. Like Ed Richards went off real early in that match. So is that really a false sense of security with his scoring? I think it is. But again, at least he's a mature age guy, but the Bulldogs, it's like to pitch Geelong, they have so many players down there. Like, is Crozier guaranteed? Like, I think Tom Cole's probably got better job security, but Crozier's got way much better scoring potential. So there's risks with that as well. There's no right or wrong answer with this, and there's no solid option. Like, at least with Yo, it's because of the percentage. That's why we're all sort of going with him. And we knew at least he was playing, either midfield or half back, and it was most likely to be midfield. And even though as a defensive midfielder, like, we're still banking minimum probably 80 from him. But these options are all got question marks about, and that's what's probably going to, kind of, rip our hair out in the next sort of 24 hours to see what people are thinking. If I'll have a look at that again. So if I trade out, let's just trade out McKenna, and we will see how those percentages are changing. If I come across here, and we'll do the old search by percentage and ownership, because as I said, Yo has dropped down. So Gimby's naturally 65%, but Yo, 10% of people have already dropped him down. And that naturally, Cohen's come up to 37%. Jones is now up to 35%. So there's quite a lot of security there in Liam Jones because of the amount of ownership in there. Like Dacos at one point, I think, was around the 50% mark, still 34%, but has naturally dropped compared to some of the other players that were going around. Let's have a look who else is there and see if there was any other big spikes while we're at it. We just talked about Campbell Chesser. The big dogs like Stewart. Sincotta, 26%. If that's you, get him out of your side. He's not even a good loophole option because Carlton play a lot of early games on. So that's another percentage that is obviously going to change with people's teams. And then it massively drops off. Like, we go Sicily 21%, Dawson 17%, and then Stewart's obviously the more popular one of those three, but they're around there. Ridley's now gone up to 11, so a few people have jumped on Ridley, and Bose has naturally also gone up there. Sam Darcy's interesting, 10%. I don't think he's probably the option. Will Day's now up to 8. And this could be like we'll maybe go into the ruck percentages as we get down to Crozier at 3 and Hunter Clark at 3, but it has seen a bit like that with Supercoach. Like, there's some massive percentages with the rookies, but we've had with the like in particular at the rucks and that, the distribution of percentage has actually been a lot more shared this year. And I think it's, as much as you hate seeing a player like Yo get injured, it's nearly a good thing in a way from a Supercoach perspective, because where 50% just lock him in, that percentage is going to just go who knows where. And I think it just makes, different teams makes the game a lot more interesting. Let's have a look at a couple of these other positions as well and see where we go, how people are thinking. Ashcroft 78%, so that's 22%. What are you doing right now? Get your teams finished. Even Dunkley should be. These two should just be straight out 100%. There's no doubt about that. We've got the dual position players. But if we scroll down, Hopper's at 48. We won't talk about Fife until we get to the forwards. Oliver 41. It's been an interesting one, the Oliver versus Laird discussion, and that idea that Laird could be tagged that round one. We were talking about this last night. Laird does play Richmond round 2, and Richmond don't tag. I wouldn't be surprised if Laird bounces back and goes to 140, 150 second week. So that 110 or 100, or if he has that poor start, that'll actually cycle out of his score pretty quickly. And though the values have changed this year, where players need to continue to get need to score actually higher as the season goes on. So I think Laird early on might be, what's his break even? I think like a 128 or something like that. As the season goes on, it'll turn into like 130, 140 at that. But that's just how the game evens up, because you got rookie guys who are starting at 102 and 123k. Their value goes up. So Supercoach, we know it's based on the 3,300 points per game. It's the same with the value. There's a set amount of value, and if a bottom player goes up, then other players' money needs to come down to keep it all balanced, and that's how it works. So then the actual what Laird needs to stay scoring to keep that money, and reach his break even each week, it goes up as the season goes on. But points on field are very important, and also that captaincy choice. So that all plays into it. Bont, I think Bont's actually pretty low for 35%. Like the guy, I still think he could be number one this season. So interesting. Holland 16%. So a few people going with the young rookie there, playing on the wing. Interesting. As we kind of scroll down, still 12% is quite not highly owned. Be interesting to would have seen if Tuke was fit to see how he would have gone. Josh Kelly. It's funny. A lot of Supercoach creators are jumping on him. They have a lot of faith on what he could do this season. So, but at 7%, and I understand what a lot of other people are thinking is the previous injury history, but the Giants do have a soft draw, so I can understand why people are thinking that. We'll move on to the rucks. Marshall 55%. I'm surprised that's not even higher. Madden and Radaglia is the cheaper options than Mac Andrew, but this is what I was talking about before. These ruck options really are dividing people. So Darcy Cameron's still at 18%, which is very interesting because we've talked about most likely Grundy and Gawn will get forward status at some point. In particular, we're really hoping it's Gawn early on, which makes Cameron's pick obsolete. Yeah, okay, Cameron's a lot cheaper and he'll definitely get that spike. He might have 100,000 in him, and we know what happened last year when he actually played as sole ruck, but he will be sharing some of that with Cox, where we know Gawn scoring. Like if Gawn, even especially if Grundy went down, that would be an amazing thing if Gawn got forward status, and then Grundy unfortunately was the miss. But even with Grundy in the side last week in the practice match, we saw how dominant Gawn is, and it could even keep him more fresher in games. And he still has the ability, to go 100 plus. Especially if they get the right ruck matchup. Like we're talking about Woods this week against Latham as well. Melbourne have them coming up pretty soon as well. What happens if they play West Coast and Nadanui's not right? Grundy and Gawn against some of these weaker ruck combinations could be very dominant. Even round one against English, Gawn didn't perform that good round one last year. But tag teaming him, where English got Gawn better around the ground, but I think Grundy can go with him, and Gawn can do that more bustling stuff in the ruck contests and that. And as English will probably tire a lot more, then Gawn could be getting quite a few +5s as we get into the second half of the game. Percentages there. See Cameron and English both 18%. Shrek's gone up to 15%. Witz is down to 13%. Draper, a lot of people are trying to jump on that cheaper rock, 12%. I don't think that's a good option. And then you've got your Gawns and your Grundys, that. So very divided ruck line. And I think there again, there's no right or wrong answer, But as an R2 option, I think we're going to definitely see one of these rucks over the first 4 or 5 weeks, put some space against some of the others. And I think that's where there's going to be a big difference when we look at those Supercoach rankings come 4 or 5 weeks in. And those who have jumped on one of these particular rucks is going to get a jump on the rest of the competition. And if we then, as I put Marshall back in, the forward line, we'll take Dunks out and see what that happens. So we talked about Dunks, 70%, should be 100%. No reason not. Timmy Taranto, very popular. Davies, 52%. Now, I know a lot of people are thinking about fading Davey, and I don't mind it. I guess they're thinking warm body and stuff like that. It's just, he's still a young fella. The Bombers, I don't think they've announced Menzies, so... talked about Menzies coming into that side yet. So does he play? How long until Tipper's fit? We still talk about Hobbs, Perkins, Guilfey. There's a lot of options in that forward line, and it was again a big discussion yesterday. So a lot of people like him as that loophole, help the loophole, but there's definitely some questions about him. Rosie, 48% is just huge, and that Goulden's now up to 37%. So if you think Dunkley, Taranto, Goulden, and who was the other, Rosie in there, most people, it'd be actually interesting to know the percentage that have all 4 of them. I'm sure Supercoach data will have that out for us after round 1. Fife's obviously 42%, so a lot of people might be fading one of them and having Fife in there at F4. They're all very highly owned players. But if we scroll down further and see if there's any kind of pods or anyone, Sheasel's very popular at the 47%. And then it starts to drop off a bit. I can't believe Drury's still in 22%. Flanders, 18%. I know a few people are looking at him. Our discussions last night around him were, does he kind of just take Rankin's role? Because it doesn't look like it would. We think Anderson, Rao, and Miller, all 2 of the 3 would have to be out for him to be permanently getting CBAs. And Rankin, I think, averaged 70 last year. So is 70 enough at Flanders at 256 for you to be confident in? Some people might say, yep, that's all I want. Other people are like, well, maybe that's not enough. What I'm looking for, you got to think that's slightly more expensive than Callaghan. And we're wanting Callaghan to go 80. Does Flanders have 80 in him? I don't think so. Tanner Bruin being named will be a very interesting one there, 12%. Horn Francis, 15%. Others looking at there. Naturally, a few are locking Dusty just because he's been named in 11%, but I don't see him running through the forward line. We had a chat about Ben King last night. My worry about him is just the conditions that he'll get up on the Gold Coast. Very slippery and dewy this time of the year when they play at night. Makes it harder for a key forward, and he has some really up and down games. At least he's best 22 and he's one of their best players, so they are going to kick the ball to him. Anthony Cameramiti, we talked to the other night, even he's a big chance to get picked, 102k, but as he said, he's a 20-year-old key forward in a team that's probably going to struggle, so yeah, it's probably going to be hard. He's best, I think he said, if he kicks 2 goals, takes 4 marks, that's probably 60 points, and that's probably a really good game for him. So, probably a void there. So that's kind of what's going on with those percentages. And my theory with that has always been, you want to try to stay with the pack as much as possible early on, but you don't want to be too similar. It obviously helps if you can find a pod captain, but you want maybe 1 or 2 pods in there. So that's where, for me, Setterfield 3%. That's the one I'm banking on. It might be it's somebody you found in the forward line, or even that might be where you find the ruck. You might take the lowest percentage ruck out of all of them. Let's just hypothetically say it's Grundy or someone like that, and let's just say they go off. That's where you might get a jump in your competition. I think Ridley's the other one, maybe at 10%. That could climb now with Yo being out. So that's why I'm looking at going, okay, I've probably got 2 legitimate pods in my team. And if they were to fire, especially with the Bombers draw early, that's where I hope I get the jump on the competition. But again, if it fails, then I find myself naturally behind in that. So there's a real balance there, and that's the way a lot of people choose to play Supercoach. Outside of that, I think Chris and I will be back to answer some questions later on, and And I'll try to get on for Friday when I've actually finalised my team, when all the teams are named. So I'll release that with enough time before the rest of the weekend. But as I said, make sure your Richmond and Carlton players are locked in, and then you can edit from there. But outside of that, and I hope everybody has a great Supercoach year and gets into the footy, get those footy tips in. I'm picking the Tigers by 3 goals and that. Maybe a bit of hope there for the as a Richmond supporter, but that's the way I'm going. So get everything in, lock it in, and enjoy the weekend. Bye.